Welcome, my friends. Today, I have a story to share with you. A story of friendship, sacrifice, and the kind of love that can change the course of a life. It's a tale about a bear, not the mighty ones you think of in the forests, but a little bear who teaches us all what true courage and love really mean. Now, I want you to think about something. What would you do if you had to make the ultimate sacrifice for someone you cared about? Would you act out of love? Or would fear hold you back? This story, well, it will answer that question. But I warn you, you'll need to stay until the end to understand the true heart of it. Trust me, it'll be worth it. This is the tale of Little Bear Nibbles, and how she changed everything for her family. Now, settle in close, my friends, for this is a story you won't soon forget. Our story begins in the vast, quiet woods of the north, a place where towering trees stretch up to the sky, and the air is crisp with the scent of pine and earth. There, in a hollow beneath an ancient oak tree, lived a bear family. The mother, a kind and strong soul named Ursula, and her two cubs, the elder one named Bran, and the younger, Little Bear Nibbles. Nibbles was no ordinary cub. She was smaller than most of the others, with soft brown fur that gleamed like the rich earth. She was often shy and spent most of her time following her brother Bran. She learned from him, played alongside him, and looked up to him, seeing him as the wisest creature in the forest. One early morning, as the first light of day began to filter through the trees, Ursula woke to a sound that made her heart drop. The growl of a predator. A pack of wolves, hungry and desperate, had entered their territory. Ursula knew that they were no ordinary wolves. These were the Greyfangs, the most fearsome pack in the woods. They were known for their ruthlessness and strength, and their presence meant danger for any creature in their path. She quickly turned to her cubs, urging them to stay quiet and hidden, to not make a sound. She tried to move away so the wolves would follow her and let the cubs alone. The pack didn't notice her and stayed in the clearing. Little Bear, ever curious, peered out from the shadows, watching the wolves as they prowled through the woods, seeking prey. She could see them circling the clearing, their eyes gleaming with hunger. Her heart pounded in her chest. But Bran, her older brother, was ready. With his strong limbs and brave heart, he knew what had to be done. "Stay here, Nibbles. I'll distract them and lead them away," Bran whispered, his voice calm yet filled with determination. But Little Bear, though small, wasn't afraid. She loved her brother and wouldn't let him face danger alone. She followed him, silently moving through the trees, until they came to the clearing where the Greyfang wolves waited. Bran, noticing she was close behind, turned to her with a stern look. "Go back, Nibbles, this isn't your fight." But Little Bear shook her head, her eyes full of resolve. Before Bran could stop her, the wolves noticed them. The leader of the pack, a massive gray wolf with piercing yellow eyes, growled low. Bran stood his ground, ready to fight. But just as the wolves lunged, Little Bear, with a courage that belied her size, jumped forward and bared her claws, roaring with all the strength she could muster. The wolves hesitated, confused and momentarily stunned by this tiny cub daring to challenge them. Their instincts told them to retreat. But the alpha, his pride wounded by the sudden defiance of the smallest member of the group, refused to show fear. He growled low, his yellow eyes burning with an unspoken challenge. And the pack, sensing their leader's defiance, bristled. Now, tell me friends, how many of you have ever stood by someone when they needed you most, even though you were afraid? Little Bear could have run, but she didn't. She knew that her family was worth the risk. And what about you? Would you take a stand like that, even if it meant facing danger? Let me know in the comments below. Bran seized the opportunity, charging forward with a mighty roar, his strong limbs carrying him toward the nearest wolf. He fought with the skill and bravery of a seasoned warrior, his claws slashing through the air as he dodged and countered the wolf's attacks. The wolf was fierce, but Bran's strength and determination were unmatched. With a powerful swipe, he knocked the wolf back, sending it tumbling to the ground, its legs scrambling to regain balance. For a moment, the pack wavered, watching their comrade fall. Bran stood tall, chest heaving, eyes locked with the alpha. He was winning, his body brimming with a strength born of love and protection for his family. But the alpha, sensing that his pack was losing ground, made a decision. He lunged with terrifying speed, his powerful jaws snapping at Bran's neck, aiming to strike with deadly force. Bran barely had time to react. The alpha's fangs scraped against his shoulder, tearing through fur and skin, but Bran's strong arms pushed back, throwing the wolf off balance. As he struggled to regain his stance, a small figure broke through the chaos. Little Bear, her heart pounding in her chest, felt the call of duty echo in every beat. Without thinking, without hesitation, She ran with full force, her small paws pounding the earth beneath her. She was a blur of motion, her fury and love for her family fueling her every step. With a mighty leap, she slammed into the alpha's side, her claws digging into his thick fur and her tiny body sending him crashing to the ground. The alpha wolf, caught off guard by the attack of such a small creature, blinked in confusion. He had never been challenged in such a way, especially not by a cub. For a brief, suspended moment, he found himself lying there, stunned by the unexpected force of Little Bear's impact. His confusion was his weakness, and it was all the time Little Bear needed to stand tall, her eyes blazing with defiance, her tiny body trembling with adrenaline. But the alpha, seething with rage and humiliation, quickly regained his footing. He snarled and lunged at Little Bear, his jaws snapping shut inches from her face. In the frantic chaos of the moment, Little Bear tried to dart away, but the alpha's claws scraped across her side, leaving a deep, bleeding wound. The pain shot through her, but she didn't cry out. She stood her ground, determined to protect her family, even as the blood seeped from her injury. In that very instant, the trees behind them rustled, and from the shadows emerged a force of nature. Ursula, their mother, charged with the fury of a storm, her massive form a blur of power and grace. She moved with the swiftness of a predator, her eyes locked on the alpha. Her roar filled the air, primal and fierce, shaking the very ground beneath their paws. The force of her presence was so overwhelming that it sent a wave of terror through the pack. In a matter of seconds, the wolves scattered, fleeing into the underbrush, their growls fading into the night. Ursula didn't hesitate. With one swift motion, she pushed her cubs toward safety, her massive frame standing like a wall between them and any further danger. She stood there for a moment, her muscles tense, her eyes scanning the clearing for any sign of a remaining threat. The wolves, sensing the fury of a mother's love, knew they were beaten. Their pride broken, they retreated into the shadows, leaving the family behind in peace. But the battle was not without its cost. Little Bear's injury, though not life-threatening, was serious. The deep scratch on her side throbbed with pain, and she could feel the blood still trickling down her fur. Bran knelt beside her, his face etched with concern, his strong hands gently inspecting the wound. "Nibbles, you're hurt," he murmured, his voice thick with worry. "Why did you have to go and get yourself into trouble?" But there was no anger in his tone, only a deep love for his sister. Ursula joined them, her eyes softening as she saw Little Bear's injury. She nuzzled her cub gently, her touch warm and comforting. "You were brave, little one," she said, her voice filled with pride. "But now we must get you to safety." The family, though shaken, moved together, their bond stronger than ever, as they began their journey to a safer place deep within the forest. Days later, they finally found refuge in a secluded part of the forest where Ursula had once called home. The injury was healing, and Nibbles was stronger. The family, although exhausted, had made it through, not just by their strength, but by their love and sacrifice for one another. And here, my friends, is the true heart of the story. It wasn't Bran's strength or Ursula's might that kept them safe. It was their willingness to sacrifice, to stand together even in the face of danger, that made all the difference. Little Bear showed us that courage doesn't come from size or strength. It comes from the heart. And what is about love? Love is the strongest force in the world. It can move mountains, protect families, and give us the strength to face the darkest of times. So, my dear friends, the next time you find yourself in a tough situation, remember Little Bear Nibbles. Remember that even the smallest among us can have the biggest heart. And always, always, remember to stand by those you love. Because in the end, it's not the battles we win, but the love we give, that makes all the difference. Thank you for joining me for this tale. If it touched your heart as it has mine and you would like more story told from me, let me know in the comments. And tell me, what would you sacrifice for the ones you love? I'd love to hear your stories.